Welcome to A Wealthy Life. My name's Vicky Wushay and I'm your host. The aim of this show is to help you pinpoint your values and craft a plan to live a truly wealthy life. I am very privileged to know an incredible amount of wonderful shining stars in the property world. And over the last 3 months, I've been interviewing them, hoping to pull out insights that, whether you're interested in property or not, you'll be able to follow along. They do say that you are the sum total of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Well, I have surrounded myself with some incredible people, and I am a very wealthy woman indeed for knowing them. I want you to go through these podcasts, listen back over them again, and pull out the insights that I am going to share with you in this episode to help you get the most out of this podcast. Let me know what you think. Thank you. Hello and welcome. I wanted to do a very specific webinar this episode, one that's going to sort of, I hope, capture all of the insights over pretty much the last 3 months. They've been a really full-on 3 months, and I wanted to make sure you didn't miss anything. And I know each of you will take something different from each of the podcasts, whether you're actually interested in investing in property or whether you're just inspired by the guests that I've had on. So I think for me, what has come out of all of the guests that I've had on, and obviously I see them literally through my own set of glasses, but also metaphorically through my own set of glasses, is this idea of, at some point in their lives, for some, like last week you heard from Cyril Thomas, he was still at university, but equally it could be somebody whose child has grown up and is heading off to university themselves, like with Stephanie Taylor back at, I think, episode 111. So there's a whole time frame that it doesn't really matter who you are as long as the time is right for you. Now, it would be great if that time, that moment of realization, could come forward sooner. And I suppose that's the point of having these podcasts, so that whenever nature may give you a moment of clarity or a moment of realization, or your life situation might push you to a point where you really feel change is vital, which is sort of some of the conversations I've been having with the clients that I've been speaking to recently. They've been talking about feeling stuck, frustrated, aware of the fact that they could do more, could do better. And they're a bit disappointed, although that's an extremely loaded word. Whatever gets you there, natural processes, listening to podcasts and just gaining the insight at that moment that clicks for you, like that last piece of the puzzle, or whether it's that emotional pressure from life circumstances that drive you forward. Being clear, having clarity about what you want your life to be like is absolutely crucial. You'll know if you've read any of my books, or if you've been generally listening to the podcast, that from my point of view, I think life really showed me what I wanted, or probably in the early days showed me what I didn't want, was way back when my marriage broke down, because I had been following along in the dream state, if you like, that I'd done everything right. Here I was now getting married, and that marriage was for life, and that everything would be fine and hunky-dory. And then it didn't turn out to be the fairy tale that I thought it would be. And that can be a bit of a shocker, to be honest with you, that everything that you thought, you knew, is actually not the way that life works out. And that message has come back to me so many times from education, like more recently in my property education, way back in 2008, sitting in those classes, and I can remember it so vividly, listening to people telling me how easy it was, how all I had to do was follow these steps and everything would work out fine. And the reality of investing in property completely different to society telling me how marriage would be, and I followed those steps, and the reality couldn't be further from the truth. So that point of recognition for you, and I think you'll hear that in absolutely every one of the podcasts, that somewhere along the line, they have had this moment of clarity. I want to finesse that by saying that recognizing that you want more in life is actually quite a loaded sentence. And what you really need to understand is whether the more is being driven by your own internal desire, the knowledge that you are capable of more, the knowledge that you want more, and that's an internal process. But if what you're doing is you're seeing, for example, a lot of the social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's adverts, whether you're lured by media and everything else, and I really think, with due respect to you, that you're a much more sophisticated listener than that, but I do feel the need to mention it, that if you are being bombarded with all of these images of how you should be, how you should feel, how you should look, what you should earn, what you should wear, where you should work, should, that actually that's an external driver. And what will happen is that there will be this clash at some point between, if you create a life based on these external stimuli, it's not congruent with you. It's not congruent with your values. And I've been doing a lot of work with the client group that I've been working with at the moment around values. And we're hopefully, maybe we even have, by the time this has gone out, be able to launch a values group. So I'm going to be working with people to help them align their internal processes with their external desire to create a better life. I mean, wow, that's an amazing, sexy SEO'd title if ever I heard one. Obviously, I'm going to have done better than that by the time we actually launch it. But this idea that if you don't know what it is, if you don't know who you are and you don't know what it is that you want, then how are your goals ever going to work? And so many people, I'm quite sure you've experienced this as well, you set goals based on something that you thought was what you wanted, and it didn't turn out to be that at all. And I'm sure I've told you this story before, how I was doing really well. I'd spent the whole year supporting my dad through illness, everything else like that. And then all of a sudden decided that I was going to halve my expenses and double or triple my turnover, something like that, whatever the numbers were. And by March, had made myself really miserable because I suddenly forgot what the focus was. And the focus was about having that time with my dad and not making more money that, frankly, I didn't need. Yeah, of course, the extra money would have been nice. But what's more important was time with my dad. And as it turns out, my dad only lived another year later. And had I pursued it, it's really interesting. It's just coming to me now. In that January to March of 2016, that desire to, or 2015, I think it was actually, to do more, to work harder, to make more money, that if I had stuck to that rather than my body, my mind telling me I was miserable, I would have missed that last year with him. So it's powerful, this stuff. Powerful to recognize what's really important to you. And I always bang on about time being really important. And I think I've also spoken to you about mortality moments, those moments when you get that shock that you're not going to live forever. Now, I know you might be riding along on that illusion at the moment, and I'm very sorry to burst your bubble. And I feel that I'm immortal as well. But there are times when maybe you have a near miss in the car, maybe when you're not paying attention, you go to step off the pavement just as a car's coming. Maybe you have a health mini crisis, or someone near you has maybe a car accident or a health crisis, and you suddenly go, gosh, that was lucky. Time is short. And I can hear that. I can hear that message all the time. And time is short. That doesn't mean to say that I am imagining that my time will be short. I know that I'm going to live a long and healthy life, and I'm going to live for as long as that I'm happy and fit and healthy and everything else. That's fine. So you can still set the intention to live a long and healthy life, while at the same time recognizing that time is precious. And so making sure that you create a life of your choosing, of your values aligned with your goals, is so important. And if you go back and you listen over these guest podcasts, I think you're going to hear every one of them will have that woven in their story, that their family, whether it's their partner, their husband, their wife, whether it's their children or their growing family, any of that, recognizing what's important to them in their lives, not the social media version of what we think we should be living a life, is really what's helped them become clear about what they want to do on their terms. And that moment, like I say, it's come in different places in their lives, is what's enabled them to take that next step. And that next step, I would suggest, is taking control. It's about making the choices to be active in their lives, to play an active role in their lives, to be the ones making the decisions, to be the ones deciding how they spend their time, to be the ones deciding how they spend the money. Quite a few of them will have had corporate life, except for Cyril. Obviously, when you listened to Cyril last week, you'll understand he's a bit of an anomaly and he's, inverted commas, never really had a proper job. I mean, I haven't had a proper job for years. He's never had a proper job. He went straight from university through an entrepreneurial journey into running his own businesses. But for most of the people that I speak to, they have held some sort of a corporate position and realized that the more successful you get in corporate life, potentially, the more dissatisfied you get, the more unhappy you get, the more stressed you get, the more tired you get, the more time you don't have with family. And I remember that way back from when I spoke with Ross Tullock. Goodness, Ross was, wow, years ago now. I can't even remember, like back somewhere in the 70s. Go check episodes somewhere in the 70s, maybe have a look round about episode 75 or so. And he was a client of mine, and his opening words were about how he was missing his time with his children. And that is a classic symptom of handing over control of your life to the corporate journey. It's not necessarily what you want. Sure, there are plenty of people happy with the corporate life. And I've just been watching a program about Japan and how brilliantly Japan has reinvented itself since the Second World War. And they have these things called the company man. And these are men whose sole purpose is to get themselves a managerial job in a company, and that will be a job for life. And they are all driven by a fear of financial instability. They value corporate jobs. And as a society, they value corporate jobs. And one of the young girls was saying she would never date a freelancer, what we might call an entrepreneur, because they didn't have a regular company wage, which is what gives Japan a feeling of stability. It was extraordinary to watch this program and to see it through a different culture's eyes. We do value entrepreneurship here. Maybe that's one of the benefits, if you like, of the influence from the States. Maybe it's something that is naturally in us as Brits. But deciding what you want your life to be, making those decisions, stepping up and recognizing, if you like, that you're responsible. That's what control is, that you recognize that you are responsible for your life, for your happiness, for how you spend your time, for the money that you generate in your family, the money that you spend in your family. And by taking responsibility, you can take that next step and you can take control. And when you take control, that's it. Now you're on the path to creating a life of your choosing. And that makes me feel a bit goosebumpy at that point. Control is not a bad thing when it's you deciding how you want to live, rather than plodding along and being unhappy and being dissatisfied. You might still maintain that corporate role. You might still run the business that is slightly wearing you down and slightly exhausting you, or the job, but you're doing it now with a purpose. You know that this is the thing that is generating the income that you can then move over, creating those resources, which is the third point, so that you can take those resources and make the best use of them. And I suppose there's a bit that links these two together, the clarity and the control, the mindset and the money, if you like. And that's this consciousness of the resources you have, being very aware of how full of resources you are, resourceful. You are resourceful. We're incredibly resourceful beings, human beings. But what I would say is that resourceful is more than just what you've got. It's a state of mind which is not about measuring the gaps. It's very easy to get sucked into, I should have a bigger house. My brother or my sister's got a bigger house or a bigger car, or a very British sentence, keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the neighbours, this idea. And for some, that is very motivating, but I don't know that it necessarily brings joy, because there's a cost to that. Because if you're going to pursue the life that someone else has, it's not your life, and their starting position, their resources, not just their time and their money, but their knowledge, their contacts, their skills, their experience, their personality, all of that might make it easier for them to pursue that. Of course, they could also be completely hoodwinking you on how wonderful their lives are, because actually, once you get behind closed doors, not everything is always as it seems. But being resourceful, and I remember this very early on, sort of 2008, when I was first studying personal development, having one of my coaches turn around to me and said, stop focusing on the gaps and start focusing on what you have. And from that point, I created a gratitude exercise. And I've spoken to you about this before, very early on, like in the first 50 episodes for sure. And this is this idea that every morning I wake up and I think of the first 3 things that I am grateful for. And I make my life easy. 3 things works for me. If you're finding this harder, you might need to do the exercise and push yourself and push yourself and push yourself until you become natural at this. And it's not that the 3 things are the same things. Okay. So 3 easy things. I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I slept well. And I'm grateful that the bedroom's warm, or whatever, some simple things. Or, I'm grateful that I've got my partner. Not to dismiss that as a point, but you don't want to be like simple about this. You don't want to be just blasé about this. You want to go deeper. You want to go, like, what are you grateful for that you learned yesterday? So my waking gratitude might be that I am grateful for the beautiful sunny day yesterday and the opportunity that I had just to relax in the garden and remember what it's like to feel sun on my face. Or it might be I am grateful for a new friend that I've made in the village, who shared a recipe with me that I made yesterday, and I made a beautiful home cooked dinner, and that I'm now in a position where I've got a freezer full of meals that I have cooked and frozen, so we don't need to eat highly processed food anymore. So you're taking things to a new level, aren't you? Then that's not just simple gratitude. I'm grateful that I slept well, because after you've done this for a while, being grateful that you slept well is almost routine. Being grateful that you're not stressed, being grateful that you're with your partner, being grateful that you feel loved. Not that you aren't grateful for those, but they're almost like your core bits of gratitude. And what you're looking to do is recognize something new that has happened in your life that you're grateful for. And then at the end of the day, what has happened today? And what happens today is you're grateful at the end of the day, but that doesn't mirror exactly what you're grateful for tomorrow morning. Overnight, these moments of realization, these insights, they merge and they melt and they come out into something wonderful in the morning that you wouldn't recognize in the evening when you first summarized your day. So I would say this conscious thought about being resourceful, recognizing the resources you have and being grateful for them is another really important 3rd step. Again, I'm not sure how explicit you'll see it in the conversations that I recorded, but I definitely know it's there underlying everything, because they couldn't be as successful as they are without either recognizing the resources they had or being grateful for them. Because if you're not grateful for them, then they feel unloved and the resources leave you and go to somewhere else. It's like an energy flow thing. I'm wandering into the weird. I'll bring myself back. So legacy is the other thing. Leverage is the fourth one. So looking at how you can then take these resources, time, knowledge, skill, and make them work harder for you. And I think you'll see that everybody over the last few weeks that I have been recording this, the last 3 months in particular, has looked at how they can make what they're doing, what they know, and the accesses they've got work harder. Whether it's been working with partners who've become financial partners, so leveraging their money by joining it with other money, whether it's about taking their knowledge further, whether it's working with a family member who's got skills to bring it together, whether it's working with experts, like when I interviewed Jay Rooney, which was about episode 110, and knowing what it means to invest so that you're picking up those skills. Maybe it's about development, maybe it's houses of multiple occupancy, maybe it's rent to rent. Whatever the technique is, it almost doesn't matter. It's about recognizing that you have resources that you can leverage. And I think in each of the stories, you can see this sense of progression. Where they started out maybe doing the first simple deal might not be where they ended up. For example, when I spoke with Craig Hopkins just a couple of weeks ago, episode 117, he was talking about how when he first started, and we started out together, and I went the very slow route, buy-to-lets all the way through, and he jumped in straight into a house of multiple occupancy. I mean, he was in a completely different position to I am. I had children at the time. I was older. I'd got the mortgage. He was here. He was new, fairly new in the country. He didn't have children. He didn't have a relationship, or maybe he wasn't married at the time, and started out doing something that I would have considered potentially more risky, more time intensive. But we started from different places. But as you move forward, we've evolved. So he has moved forward in his investing and evolved, and he's also moved forward by creating his business on the side, which is hardly a business on the side anymore. He's a full-time property accountant. So you can start to see how each one of these interviewees has progressed, has developed, has learned how to leverage their time, their money, in a way that is congruent with the lifestyle that they want to achieve. And it might be that when you start out, maybe like Craig or some of the others, very early on, you're in there with a passion, you recognize the opportunity, you test out a technique, and then you go, wow, this is taking a lot of time. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And so you adapt, you learn, you progress, and you move forward. And every one of these stories is about a process of progression. Every one of these stories is about the interviewees recognizing where they were and then taking the next step, and then evaluating and then taking the next step. And some of them, their stories are so detailed that I've interviewed a couple of episodes with them, so you'll be able to pick those back out. But look back over the last 3 months and start to link those stories up. And of course, once you've actually got to the stage where you're leveraging those resources that you've got, you can step into another place, another space, if you like, and that is of legacy. And so for me, this ties in very nicely with the 3 words of responsibility, enough, and contribution. So responsibility is recognizing that if you want to live this life, it's your choice. That's the clarity moment again. And then it's your choice to be in control. So that's responsibility. Enough is recognizing that you have the resources and that you can leverage them in a way so that maybe you don't have to work full-time in a corporate job if you don't want to. You can start to transition. You use the corporate job or the business to generate the financial resources so that you can acquire those cash flowing assets. And then you reach a point where you go, okay, I've got enough. I'm going to start consolidating. And as you consolidate into something that then gives you a significant cash flow, you can then make your next decision. Do you want to carry on investing in property? Do you want to change your technique? So from buying and holding, you might do developing, and then you might move forward where, like with Cyril, you create events. With Craig, you've created the property accountancy business. With Jay, he's created the mortgage business. Or what you might do, which some of the girls have done, or it's interesting actually that it just split that way, but I'm sure this isn't exactly linear down the genders here, but actually moving on, and are you creating sort of like a charitable legacy on the back of this? Is there something that you are doing to help others? And for some, it's about social housing, which is actually the point at which I started, because that was my journey. I started probably later than all of these. And because I'd been in social housing, that was actually one of my drivers, that when I recognized I could be in control of my finances and I can make a difference, the first thing that I did was start investing so that I could house single mums. So I could give single mums that opportunity to have a stable environment where they could bring up their family, because the family is the next generation and it's so important that we support them. But it could equally be that you donate into charities. You've probably seen that. If you remember those interviews back with Julia, which would have been in September sometime of last year after we went to South Africa. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but there was a little series that I did there in South Africa, and understanding just how important it is to know how fortunate you are. You know, the conversations that I had with Julia, who runs the Umdudozi charity out there in South Africa. In fact, actually, I've just seen it was in November. So starting round about episode 90. So go back and have a listen to those. To actually be in a position where you recognize how fortunate you are. And when you understand that you have enough, which is that word that I was using, it's so easy to then step into contribution, to be in a place where you can give back to others. And that's really what I wanted to capture for you here. I wanted to go back over the stories to relate them to the insights that I've gained as the interviewer. I'm the interviewer, aren't I? It's from the interviewer, to hopefully highlight for you as the listener, to relate it, for example, to the principles of a wealthy retirement, those 5 principles that I have, which are clarity, control, resources, leverage, and legacy. And you'll see that I've spoken about those. But also this concept that I've had for a long while, which is the way forward to a healthy life is to recognize that it is your responsibility and there's no one else to blame. You have a choice. You can either be the creator of your own story, or you can play a role in somebody else's. And if you believe that we're all here for a purpose, maybe your purpose in this life is to play a role in somebody else's story, to help them evolve. And that's for you to decide. But I feel that my role here in life is to create a life, a lifestyle, a set of resources, set of beliefs, if you like, that if others choose to, they could follow. Not that I'm some sort of guru or leader. It's more the fact that for me, I feel understanding what has made me who I am, what's made me, enable me to have what I have, that those steps are so repeatable. They're so, excuse me saying this, they're so obvious. It's just about, I keep doing this, see through the illusion. It is seeing through the illusion. It's not being sucked in by all this stuff. Yes, I still sit and I look at the videos on YouTube, and they're not all just cats and obviously whales and sharks for me, but sometimes there's a cute kid or a funny waddling duck or whatever else it is, and sometimes it's someone doing gymnastics or dance or whatever might come up. But at the end of it, I recognize that is just entertainment. That's all it is. It's a mini TV screen. It's not real. They are actors. And then yet again, of course, I participate in the process, don't I? I produce Instagram videos and reels and Facebook videos, and you've probably been following along. And if you haven't, then connect on social media and follow those. Am I then not just an actor portraying a life that is no more real than anything else? I'd like to think that's not true. I'd like to think my life, in fact, I know my life is very true. And I think that if you speak to anybody who knows me, you'll know that I have my passion for tomatoes in the UK, my passion for travel and scuba diving and all things whale and shark and all of that sort of stuff, and that I am passionate about making a change, whatever small change that could be in terms of climate change through the project that I have in the village. I'm also very conscious of my own health and well-being, and that's taken me an enormous amount of time to learn. It was so easy for me to recognize that my money was my responsibility, and so much harder for me to realize that my health was my responsibility. Because again, I believed that the health service was there to keep me healthy. It's not. It's there to patch me up when things go wrong. It's my responsibility to keep me healthy. And the more that you can do to be healthy and then to be wealthy, you can almost buy yourself out, step out of the demands that everybody else puts on society and become self-sufficient in your own right. Not in a weird bunker style. I've forgotten the name of the guys in America that just think the world's going to end. Not in a prepper way, but in a way that says, actually, I can take responsibility for me. I can provide for my own finances and do that in a way that helps others, because it all links back round. And I can take care of my health, and maybe you'll start having the time to grow your own fruit and veg in the garden, and I can provide for some of my food. I can't supply all of it at the moment, but I'm stepping up and being active in my life, being active with my money, being active with my time, active with my choices, conscious of all of this, but not in a way that's driving me mad, but actually in a way that is driving me to more and more joy, more and more pleasure. And to say the older I get on, but the further on my journey I get, the more I'm focused on my happy calendar. So when I work with clients, I am fully focused on them. And I think that any one of my clients would say that I go, I hope they believe this, above and beyond to help them, to support them on their journeys. But at the same time, they all know in return that I like my holidays. And that's part of, I suppose, why they're working with me, because they see what I do in my life. And if I can do it in my life, maybe I can show them how to do it in their life. And that's certainly some of the feedback that I've been getting from the clients that I'm working with at the moment, that they want to find a way that they can create their version of my life, whatever their priority is. It's going to start with financial resilience and then creating income generating assets, so that they don't have to work just to pay the bills. And then they can make those choices about how they want to live. Maybe it is to travel, and for some of them it is travel, but for others it's about spending more time with their children while they're growing up, and for others it might be spending more time with their parents as they get older. But the point is, the decision is yours. And in every one of these interviews, you can see my interviewees, and a lot of these people I consider to be friends, that my friends are all following that path, that they've all stepped up and they're all creating the lives that they want to create. And I think if my one whoosh for you, it would be that you become clear on what it is that you want, but on your terms, not to be influenced by others, not even to be influenced by me, but what is the life that you want to live? What would give you joy? And then look at your values, make sure that they're going to support you, and then build out from that a plan. Be in control, make the decisions, make the choices about how you spend your time, how you spend your money. Be much more conscious of this. And again, certainly those first original 20 episodes that I made will talk you through, again, a lot of these concepts. So I just wanted to bring that loop round, and hope you can see how all of this is so connected. While I might be talking about property, I've also been speaking to some incredibly inspirational people that have moved through an entrepreneurial journey, if you want to talk about it like that, an entrepreneurial journey that is leading them to live a quality life of their choosing. And if they can, and if I can, then you can. So I hope this episode has brought some whoosh into your life, given you something to think about, maybe encourage you to go back and listen to some of the episodes, make sure that you haven't missed any of the last 3 months, but also maybe to go back and pick up some of the other episodes from earlier on, from gratitude, from is your time worth more than your money, to think about the happy calendar, to pick up some of those, particularly the first 20, and then to move forward and pick up those episodes that I recorded with Julia in Umdidoti when we were in South Africa and go, do you know what? Maybe my life is really good. Maybe I am very fortunate. And if that doesn't drive you into gratitude, then book a call and we'll have a chat. So until next week, when I am back speaking with Lisa Oliver, and we're talking about building a life-changing business, then I wish you and whoosh you all the very best. Thank you very much for listening.